Good morning, Browns fans. It's trade deadline day, and we have a lot of news to get into. Dianna Russini has weighed in on some more Browns rumors, as well as Ian Rapoport and other NFL insiders. Welcome in the Browns Report, everybody. I am your host, Joey O'Donohue, and we're ready to tell you all the Cleveland Browns news that's going to happen today. This is why you hit that subscribe button. The Browns are going to make a trade, folks. And you're going to want to know what it is, why it's happening, and all the details. We have you covered. Hit that subscribe button. Turn your notifications on as well so you can be the first person to see it. But this is why you subscribe, because it's happening today, ladies and gentlemen. We have multiple reports suggesting so. One that probably will not happen, though, Dianna Russini tells us, is Myles Garrett, thankfully. Myles Garrett is not getting traded, I'm told. Teams have checked in, but as one high-ranking source texted, he's a Brown and will remain a Brown. Good news, Browns fans, because if you remember, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler had said it's not inconceivable to think the Browns would trade Myles Garrett, and that Pat McAfee had said his contract looks tradable. This does not appear to be happening, especially not this year. And I think now it is obviously inconceivable. There's only a day left. We'd have to survive. I did find it interesting, though, that Russini says teams were calling about Myles Garrett, but the Cleveland Browns shutting it down, and Adam Schefter confirmed that they're shutting things down as well. Said there's no chance, a source told him, and that source added that people have a better chance of winning the lottery than the Cleveland Browns trading them Myles Garrett. We're keeping Big 95 in Cleveland, and I think a lot of people don't realize that the Browns are not in a traditional rebuild. This is why Adam Schefter had come out and told us yesterday that the Browns are likely to be buyers rather than sellers this week. They do not sound inclined to trade tight end David Njoku, but they've been calling around the league, still looking to add quality young players to their roster. And what I mean by not a traditional rebuild is that Browns defense is ranked as one of the best in the NFL in terms of total defense. I really think if you went out and added offensive linemen and receivers, Cleveland would be contending. Now, it could also help if we figured out quarterback situation, but it's just so bad on offense right now that it's not going to be productive. And so this makes sense to me that Cleveland would go out and buy on some young players, and hopefully we could turn this thing around in a lot quicker than people realize. Listen, we were in the playoffs 2 years ago with a good offensive line. That's the issue. Cleveland can right this ship quicker than other experts realize. That's why you're hearing that the Browns are going to be buyers, not sellers. And I'm here for it. The question is, who will Cleveland trade for? Well, Cleveland made a couple moves late on Monday and said, we've designated wide receiver Cedric Tillman to return. Let's go. Tillman's back. Also, they went ahead and released safety DeMonte Casey. Well, this is an interesting move. Are we not lacking a little bit of safety depth in that room? I mean, Grant Delpit has been playing at an incredible level, but Casey, who was a part of it, as you see in the strong safety spot, they literally just released him. And so now we also have indication that the Browns are open to trading Rayshon Jenkins. Jordan Schultz told us that. And so it would literally just be Grant Delpit as our only strong safety on the roster. Well, that's not going to suffice next year, is it? If Cleveland is going out and looking to add young players, does this mean that a young safety could be arriving in Cleveland tomorrow? You'll have to stay tuned and find out. But I think what's most likely now, based on all my reports, based on what the Cleveland Browns need, it's an offensive line. It's our biggest need. Tackles specifically are killing us. Let's be real. We're going to talk wide receivers as well a little bit later on the show, but I think we should start with, if we fix this O-line, you'll see things blow up in a good way for the Cleveland Browns. Quinshon Judkins is already having a stellar season. Imagine he had an offensive line. Imagine if we had time to throw. Like, I don't think Gabriel's the answer, but it doesn't change the fact that you need tackles. Jordan Schultz recently tweeted that the Commanders have been open to trading several players. That includes offensive linemen Andrew Wiley and Nick Allegretti, both of whom bring extensive starting and playoff experience. Wiley has valuable position flexibility, having played both guard spots and right tackles during his career. All right, here's two names in the offensive line market that have finally opened up. Wiley, the first one, he's a little old. He's over 30, and he's on a contract year. That one doesn't enthrall me as much, given Cleveland is at the bottom of the AFC North as we speak. However, Allegretti, the other name mentioned there, is under contract until 2027, and he's 29 years old. Now, he primarily plays guard, but Cleveland desperately needing anyone on that offensive line because of the free agents we have coming up and lack of depth. I could be interested in this. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler told us that offensive line is a huge need for the Cleveland Browns and that if he had to pick a trade target, it would be offensive line. With the Browns still rebuilding and most of their O-line set for free agency next year, the best trade target would be a young lineman who has worn out his welcome with his current team but is under contract past this season. I think that does make the most sense. That's why I highlighted Allegretti rather than Wiley. And my pick of all the offensive linemen on the market, because there's not many, is Jackson Powers Johnson. I addressed this in yesterday afternoon's video of the Las Vegas Raiders. He's young. He's signed. Bring me him. I do not want Evan Neal of the New York Giants. Let me make that clear. Adam Schefter listed Neal as a trade target, and he's terrible. In fact, I had a Giants source literally tell me that exact phrasing. He's, quote, terrible. He sucks. We do not need a bad offensive tackle. We have plenty of those. So there's not many available, and I think we need to make one by tomorrow. By tonight, really. What do you think, Browns fans? Will they actually do it, though? Will Andrew Berry pull the trigger? Will Cleveland trade for an offensive lineman? Type Y for yes if you think they will. Type N for no if you think they're going to ignore our biggest need. Just like they did in the draft last year. I will say, that's probably where the issue gets solved is this year's NFL draft. We draft a couple tackles, perhaps a guard as well. But I would love another move to be made because Cam Robinson obviously did not solve the issue when we traded with the Texans. Can Cleveland go out and get one more, bolster up that room, bolster up that depth? Let's talk wide receivers now, Browns fans. I know you've been waiting to talk about them. Dianna Russini listed Brian Thomas Jr. as a wide receiver on the market right now. Are you kidding me? The young, talented Jacksonville wideout. Let's take a look at what Russini had to say about him specifically. The Jaguars are looking for defensive tackle. We have some of those. They have received lots of interest in wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr., but no substantial offers. Most around the league believe it would take a first-round pick and then some to land the 2024 Pro Bowler. Well, Jacksonville Jaguars head coach Liam Cohen responded to this rumor and said, "We have no plans on moving Brian Thomas Jr. at all." Completely shut down Dianna Russini's reporting. However, this is the head coach saying this, not the GM. So, if you remember, when Cleveland traded Joe Flacco, Kevin Stefanski had no idea this was going to happen. So, at first I was like, okay, the rumor's over. But the head coach saying it actually doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to happen. GMs make the phone calls, and they might make decisions without talking to the head coach. Unless Cleveland's the only dysfunctional organization in the world that does that. But I don't think it's likely Brian Thomas Jr. gets moved. Dianna Russini tells us teams are very interested, though. I think he's a little too pricey for the Cleveland Browns to go out and get. There are plenty more wide receivers on this list, ladies and gentlemen. You're not going to want to miss it if you're a diehard Browns fan that wants us to have some better receiving corps. But before we get into all of those nuggets, I got to tell you about our friends over at PrizePicks. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with PrizePicks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Football is in full swing now on Sundays. All is right with the world, and I'm big into daily fantasy with PrizePicks. I'm obsessed with it because it makes all the games more entertaining. And before the Browns play, I lock in on all my players in my lineup and their player projections. PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks also offers injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks won't count it as a loss. Hopefully, I am celebrating a victory with my lineup this morning. It was Monday Night Football special. Dak Prescott, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. Jakobi Brissett, our old friend, more than half an interception. Feel like that's coming, even though the Cowboys defense is bad, which is why I've got the Ohio State University wide receiver Marvin Harrison going for more than 59.5 receiving yards. That's how I hopefully made some money. But that's a good example of a lineup. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It is good to be right. Everybody knows that. Let's get back into some wide receiver action, ladies and gentlemen, because this is what Cleveland really needs to do. Jakobi Meyers has been a name on the trade block for a long time, but Dianna Russini tells us Las Vegas has set a high price for Meyers. Does that change with their loss to Jacksonville, though? Because they should be going into full blow-up-everything mode. Geno Smith is not working over there for them, and there's a lot of frustration within the organization. But if Meyers is worth higher than a third, I don't think it's something that Cleveland should need to go ahead and do. New Orleans has multiple wide receiver rumors in their room. Rashid Shaheed, the first name on that list, and then former Ohio State Buckeye Chris Olave, also a trade candidate from New Orleans. These two specifically have gotten a lot of buzz. Saints in that position of rebuild as well, probably more so than any other team besides the Titans in the National Football League. They're taking calls on most of their players. That includes Alvin Kamara as well. Cleveland, though, we got our guy, Quinshon Judkins. Ian Rapoport told us that the wide receivers of the New Orleans Saints, though, would require a high price, perhaps too high, for what acquiring teams would want to pay. So all of a sudden, with the trade deadline looming, teams are setting high prices on their star wide receivers. This market is harder to tap into than it looked like it would be a week ago. So Olave likely not getting moved, especially not to Cleveland. The final wide receiver, who is somewhat of a big name that's been mentioned, is Calvin Ridley. But he's getting a little bit older. I believe he's hit 30. And it seems like Ridley would be going to a team that is making a playoff push. Unfortunately, our rival Pittsburgh Steelers are calling up a few of these names. So the prices are too high for the big name wide receivers. And what does that mean for the Cleveland Browns? Well, Adam Schefter says that the Browns are buyers, right? They're going to go out and acquire more players. But they're not going to go out and acquire players for this year. Do we have that right? They want players that are signed for multiple years to come. So you're probably not going to see the Cleveland Browns make a big push for a big wide receiver that's in trade rumors to help them right now. That's why I brought up Jalen Waddle in yesterday's video, because he's someone who's actually signed under contract, and we do need a big-name wide receiver. What I am expecting the Cleveland Browns to go out and do, given that they have the title of buyer now from Adam Schefter, is add a young offensive lineman or a young wide receiver who's under contract. Get ready. Gear up. Something's coming today on Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. If you want it to happen, smash that like button. Do it so that Andrew Berry makes a big trade for the Browns. Let's get some more young talent in here. Oh, hopefully a position of need, wide receiver, offensive line. Hit that like button if you want the Browns and Andrew Berry to make the big trade happen. We'll be here to cover you for you when it does. One trade, though, that one of our longtime offensive linemen doesn't want to happen. Wyatt Teller said today, I hope I don't get traded. I want to retire a Cleveland Brown. We love you for saying that, Wyatt Teller. He's had some great years in Cleveland. This is the thing about the NFL, though. They say it's a business. And Wyatt Teller's name has been brought up in trade rumors. Should Cleveland ship him out, we will miss him absolutely. And I will have you covered if that does happen. We're glad he wants to stay and fight for the Cleveland Browns, though. Petonio does as well. Love having those guys. The run blocking has actually been good for the Browns this year. It's pass blocking that has been terrible. This is why you hit that subscribe button, folks. If you love the Cleveland Browns and you want to know what's going on with them, the big day has come. Trades are set to go down. I'm here for you. Hit that sub button. Turn the notifications on. Be the smartest Browns fan in the room so you know everything that breaks with the Cleveland Browns. We're here for you. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.